Hi, everybody. Welcome to Inside Scoop with Sue. And today we are back with Dr. Elizabeth Milovidov.
Yes, great pronunciation. I'm impressed.
You know why? I wrote it out with the pronunciation and not with your name. But we practiced it last time, so I was pretty confident I was going to get it right.
You nailed
So,
it.
Dr. Milovidov is a mom to two tech-savvy tween boys, a lawyer, law professor, and e-safety consultant, and an independent expert on digital parenting and children and internet for the Children's Rights Division of Council of Europe, and much more, moving into
Yeah,
much bigger spaces.
much more. Yeah, doing a lot of stuff supporting companies and associations and parent groups just to get their heads around this parenting in the digital age.
Well, we need your help.
That's why I'm here. Let's do it.
Yay. I want to ask you, sometimes like the doctors who know so much can be really scared of raising kids, right? Because like they know all this stuff. So what keeps you up at night? What worries you the most about when it like dealing in this space with tweens and teens?
Um, Ooh, that's a double question because not only, with the doctor hat on and the legal hat, looking for other parents and what they're thinking about, but also the questions that I have with my own 12 and 14-year-old. And I think what's the preoccupying worry is that we are not on their side enough. We are not having conversations with them enough, myself included. We're not always understanding, what they're doing, why they're doing it, what it means for them. And, let me just give you a very small example. I'm sure in the United States, as in Paris, France, everyone's gone crazy with the Squid Game, right? Everybody wants to watch the Squid Game. Well, there have been times where, it's just a lot of parents are saying, no, out of the question. A lot of parents are not even paying attention. They have no idea what their kids are watching. And this is this whole idea where we have to get into their lives with them to figure it out. And so I watched a tiny bit with my boys and we agreed. We were like, it's too violent. It's too messed up, but we can read about the series so we can find out what happens. So we're still in the know without all of the blood and gore. And so those are the types of things. I mean, we've got to get creative, Sue. We really have to figure out ways to have our cake and eat it too.
How'd you get your boys to buy into it though? Like, do you feel confident they're not watching it somewhere else?
See, this is it. Because even for all the parents who shut it down, of course they were watching it elsewhere. Of course they know the plot. So I know that they have seen bits and pieces. My youngest does not have TikTok or YouTube or any of these, and yet he is watching YouTube shorts, watching TikTok on YouTube. And, it's just that is the name of the game. But I always have to trust that I have enough conversations with them when they see something, when they feel something, that they come and talk to me about it. And that's when I can up my parenting game and get in there.
So yeah, that's what we hear from every expert right now. It like all the monitoring and all these other things can't replace the talking.
No. And I'm so happy that you say that because I've always said that, parental controls, forget it. You are the parental control. It's up to you to really, guide your children. I mean, by the time they're 9, forget it. If they can go on to a search engine and put how to uninstall the parental control, it's over. And it's happened to me. I'm speaking from experience.
Well, so the biggest problem here is that all of these conversations fall back on my shoulders and it just feels so overwhelming. So can you give us an example? Like Squid Games, that conversation is great, but what happens to the family that like they forbid it? Like they
Right.
just say this is not appropriate and you will not watch it. What's the conversation in your head that's going to be more successful?
Right. Well, I think that something that's really easy to do is to, for example, go to Common Sense Media and look at the review of the film together as a family. I have done things like this with my own children where after they saw what was in it and what it was really about, they were like, oh, well, that's not so interesting. I mean, let's face it, a lot of this is just buzz and hype. And everybody wants to know. People are no longer talking about Squid Games the way they first were. So it's gone. And I think that, having those conversations, even if your children do watch it, even if you restrict them 100% and they're watching over someone else's shoulder, it's, well, how did that make you feel? What did you think about it? Do you feel that, you were more depressed after watching that? Were you feeling anxious? I mean, these are the ways that we can help, that we can really chime in. And I did hear you mention the overwhelm. I so get it. We are all completely and totally overwhelmed. And I don't want to add one more layer onto it with parents. So that's why I would just say, take it easy on yourselves. No parent shaming. Just kind of pull back a bit and say, okay, while we're having dinner, or if I'm making breakfast, or if I don't even have that much time, how was your day? How was your online day? What's going on? Just very low key. It's just by having these repeated conversations that our teens, even though they are listening to us, they will finally hear us.
I love that. Like just being in their lives, like the same way we would vet anything else, and just bringing up, hey, what are you watching online?
Exactly.
Not like, but I told you couldn't, but like, what are you watching?
What are you watching? And I also think that providing them that sort of choice and control as well, if we're talking about what are you watching, or let's just face it, we want to talk about screen limits. If we talk about, how much time are you online? Instead of sitting there, slamming them down about saying you're on 5 hours a day, this is too much, you're off, 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 off. Sit there and say, okay, what do you think is reasonable? What would be a great schedule for you? Empower your teens. They are not silly, really. They might explode it the first week or two, but they're going to sort of balance it out, especially if they're, filling out applications for college or doing other things. They're going to realize that less is more. And if you help them with that sort of self-regulation beforehand, I just think it's just much, much easier.
It's a long-term game, right? Like you want them to leave your house with the ability to self-regulate. So you've got to help them along the way.
Yeah, but you know what, Sue, what we're talking about is not any different than regular parenting, which is why I'm saying, your teen magazine, the things that you do and that you talk about to help parents, it's the same. Let's just throw some of that common sense parenting style into the digital. That's it.
All right. We throw the word addiction around when it comes to gaming in particular, but even our kids on social media or just on tech all the time. So first of all, is that a real thing? And second of all, how would you know if your kid has a problem?
Yeah. And so personally, we say addiction so easily, and I'm not even going to go into the semantics of, what's addiction, what's problematic use. I will say when we're talking about gaming, there is gaming disorder addiction, which is defined by the World Health Organization. And that is 12 months of, not going to school, not eating well, not having relationships. I mean, this is true addiction. What we're using more and more, and laypersons saying, oh, my child is addicted to social media, my teen's addicted to Fortnite. I mean, this is for sure, there's a surge of usage of online devices, especially after the pandemic. That's what we're talking about. I think parents should really look at what's the effect, not so much, getting caught up in the terminology around it, but looking at their teen. Are they being respectful? Are they eating? Are they sleeping? Are they anxious? Are they depressed? Are they scrolling through their feeds and then saying, oh, but everybody else is doing something great? Or are they scrolling through their feeds saying, it sucks for them too, and then they don't feel so lonely. So I think we need to kind of, take a step back and again, get into those connected conversations to actually find out what is affecting our teens, whether it's addiction, mental health issues, anxiety. It's the only way that we will know. And please, let's take the digital out of it. Let's not even talk about the games. Let's talk about if, our teens, if we were back 20, 30 years, if it's me and you, Sue, and we're sitting there and we're watching way too much Gilligan's Island, are parents going to have a talk with us and say, what's going on? Or, we're all into Battlestar Galactica and we're just, buying every single fan magazine with Dirk Benedict. Our parents are going to step in and say, don't you think that's a little unhealthy? Go and talk to some real friends, maybe. It's this same sort of, again, common sense parenting that we can do just with the tech and the devices attached to it all.
So we talk about this a lot. We talk about not being this top-down parent who throws rules onto their kids. And for so many of us, that's really uncomfortable. Like it's the parenting we experienced and it feels like it's the right way to parent. But we know when it comes to, well, first of all, this generation, it doesn't work well, but also particularly with gaming, it's such a hard thing to say, close your computer right now.
Right.
We are ready for whatever we're ready for. So how do we balance the family needs versus this kind of new empowerment that kids have to say, no, I'm not going to shut it down. And then the battle is so willful, right? I'm going to turn off the Wi-Fi, all of these horrible things that just ratchet it all up.
But that's exactly right. And all of this negotiating, and like I said, it has happened in my house too, where I'm like, come on, and then they say, just 10 more minutes, mom. But I think that first, if we're understanding the game, what are they playing? Does it have that natural end, that natural stop? That really does help. Imagine if you and I were sitting here, I don't know, watching Jeopardy, and it's right before they get to the final question or something. There's a natural end. And if somebody goes and turns off the television, then it's more acceptable. And I'm not saying for parents to be all wishy-washy and super into, emotions of how your child and what they're doing in their gaming. No, but I'm saying, just ask them to say, hey, when does the game end? Is it when you lose that next life? Is it after you create something? That will, number one, help out. I think if parents also have these conversations when they're not in the midst of it, when they know, this is that breakdown point where they want their child off, their teen off by 9 o'clock. Don't come in at 9 and start yelling. You come in beforehand, you let them know, just as we did before when they were toddlers. It's the same sort of self-regulation issues, and video games and social media, all of this stuff, it is designed to pull us in. It is designed to keep us entertained and attracted. And this is a hard issue for parents to battle, I'll say. But again, I know that we can do it. I've seen us do it. I have done it in my own house. And one of the ways, again, is by, doing these conversations with them, choosing with them. Of course, I'm guiding behindhand, because if I ask them, okay, how many hours do you want to play a day? They might say 3. And I'll say, let's try 1 and see how we go. But they feel like they're empowered. You can also look at the content of what they're playing. So again, Squid Games is all over the place. There's Squid Games in Fortnite and different things. You can find it. But let's say that you are asking them, if they're playing Call of Duty, which is 18 plus, or they're playing Roblox, which is for younger kids. You can say, okay, well, instead of, what do you think? A choice of, an hour of Fortnite or an hour of Roblox. Give them a choice. So then it's just still that 1 hour, and it's not 2. So it's those types of things, the same sort of strategies that we used before with our kids. Do you want those carrots or do you want the green beans? Really, it's getting that creative, going back to what worked when they were younger.
And so in that space of games, you talked about finding out, like, what's the thing that gets to the end. Are there games that don't have an end, that don't have a natural end?
Yes, of course there are. And again, that's when it's just, you're going to have these discussions beforehand where they say, hey, what are you playing? Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, let's just set a timer, or, mom will remind you, or whatever. Or how are you going to remind yourself to get off? Because, you go into that multiplayer game with everyone, and you're going to want to stay on for a while. And then in some cases, Sue, why not let them have that blowout, that 3-hour day, Saturday, Sunday, Friday, after homework is done. You set the terms in your own families of what can work. If your teen has not done anything all week long, and then they want to, spend 4 hours gaming, grades are good, homework is done, house is clean, go for it. Invite me, I'll play too.
I like that. I mean, and all of this is about your family. It's not about my family and our rules. It's about your family, which even that can be hard for kids, because someone's family is going to be more lenient than you are.
For sure. Someone's going to be more lenient. In my house, I'm usually, my youngest always says, oh, you're like that internet safety cop, that cyber cop. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I don't find that I am super restrictive at all, but because I'm not letting him do what everyone else is doing, then I get that. But I think that parents would be pleasantly surprised if they talk to other parents and ask them, is their child allowed to watch Squid Games? Is their child allowed to play Call of Duty when they're 12? Is their child allowed to, I don't know, be on some dating site when they're 17? You'd be surprised.
Yeah, there's never the everyone else's parents. Like, turns out that's not really ever true.
No, it wasn't true in my day either.
Yeah.
I tried it too.
Okay, so, you've kind of told us the answer to this, but I just want to say that sometimes we're just tired, and ignoring it, letting it go is just the easiest thing, especially when you know that the next thing out of your mouth is going to set off like an explosion.
Right. But again, don't beat yourself up, right? And so we've had this pandemic. I kind of say, think of this like having that holiday meal where we have just totally, overeaten, we've done everything that we shouldn't have done, and now we're going to get back on track. And I think that that's really important, and that sometimes it might be the best thing to just let it go because you're overwhelmed, you're tired. It's like, okay, that's fine. And when we're talking about our teens, it is a little bit different than talking about, for example, a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old sitting there on a screen all day. Then I would say, come on, you can really do it. Let's figure out something else recreational or outside. But for our teenagers, honestly, I think that it is okay. And one of the approaches that I like for this one is by Tammy Fisher Houston, who did Fearless Parenting. And what she had suggested was just this idea of having an absolute clarity, absolute yes, absolute no. So if you're talking about, you're going to be tired, you want your teen to be off at, again, 9 p.m. Your absolute clarity, that's the rule. But we come into, we're tired, we're just like, okay, get off. They don't get off, this is just an absolute no. We're not going to lose our calm. We're just going to say, that's fine. Then turn it off. You walk out. The next day, you can come back and it's an absolute yes. Okay, you have your tech. This is fine. But you're going to stop at 8:30 since we weren't able to do that 9 o'clock last night. And so it's this type of fearless parenting, of just staying calm around these issues, letting some things go, knowing which battle we're going to fight, that we can move on. And I think that so many of the good strategies that exist for digital parenting already exist for parenting, fearless parenting, positive parenting. There are so many ways that are out there that we just have to just adjust it and not be so afraid because we're talking about social media or a video game or home assistants or VR or the metaverse. It's the same.
I guess the thing for me when my kids were younger was the explosive nature of really saying, I'm going to enforce this rule. And so I guess for parents out there who are, I don't want to say afraid of their kids, because we know that's not a good dynamic, but afraid of the response to saying tomorrow night's 8:30 instead of last night's 9. What makes tomorrow night any more likely to have a good outcome? And then are they going to bed at 4 in the morning? Then you keep working it back. And
right. And again, I think it's every single family. And I mean, what you're pointing out is such a good example, is that we don't know, right? But I do trust that parents, for the most part, they're having an idea of how their children, especially their teens, are going to react. I know that if I came up with that with my eldest, it's going to work. With my youngest, I'm going to have some difficulty. So because I know that, I'm also not going to just pull it out of the hat. I'm also not going to just, expect this instantaneous change. And one of the things when parents are talking about creating family media agreements and tech agreements and all of these things, I'm also saying be flexible because you're not just going to be able to enforce something on a 17-year-old that you can on a 7-year-old in the same way. And if you have these conversations with them about trying to figure something out, you will hopefully have way more success than if you just kind of go it on your own and just say my way or the highway, because that hardly ever works out.
But it's a funny dynamic, like this fearless parenting, which is we have a 9 o'clock rule in our house, which hopefully you've already negotiated with your kids. So it's not just there.
Right.
But then we have the notion of being flexible. So, they're kind of, it's a little bit, you'll know it when you see it,
Yeah. Unfortunately, it is, because I mean, just as you were talking about the rapidity of technological advances. I mean, you can't just sit here and say, I'm going to hold firm with this idea. I think perhaps the only overwhelming I'm going to hold firm idea is the idea I'm going to have a conversation and I'm going to support my teen. That's the only one where I'm saying, okay, no flexibility. We've got to keep that one consistent. But everything else, how you get there, how you negotiate it, how you deal with your own overwhelming and anxiety, how you deal with your devices in your home as well. I say that in all transparency. It is an afternoon on a French holiday and I'm on my computer. These are the things that when I get off, it's going to be serious family time. And it's just, kind of push and pull.
Okay, so you said there's a definite, support your kid. I love that. It's a loving relationship. Is there a definite no? We've got the definite yes. You've got to give your kids this support. You've got to be there for them and know that you're there for them. Is there any line that you draw in the sand in your house or for other people?
For me, the line in the sand is about sort of harmful content. And I'm going to say even more specifically about uh, being mean. Just because when we talk about pornography or sexting or any of the other things that children might come up across or that they see, if you have that open conversation already there, you might hear about it. But when children are being mean, and again, it's not the child, it's the behavior, that's when things can also start catapulting and spinning out. And I see this every year where I get called into schools to come and talk about bullying and social media just because some of these little acts, they go unchecked. And I think that those are just simple reminders as well about, how we act online, same way we act offline, right? We're not going to sit here and be snarky and make these sort of comments or let something else that we see that we know is wrong go by unchecked. It's always, for me, kindness is king. And I think that's something that is a definite, it's always a hard yes, always.
Kindness is king. Good one. Okay. I know that the fear of what the response is can drive us like kind of to sit back a little bit. But I also know that our kids say we nag them all the time. And no one wants to be a nag. Like no one's setting out to be a nag, but it seems that going up at 8:30 and saying, hey, don't forget at 9:00, and then maybe going up at 8:45, that it does start to feel like we're nagging all the time.
So then check out with your teen, talk with them and find out, okay, so this isn't working. What's going to work? And perhaps it's something like, again, taking yourself out of the equation. So I've had families where instead of drawing up a family media agreement where I'm going to do this and you're going to do that, they just placed up on a wall, just a chart. So that way it's not them nagging. It's just, there's the chart. If you're sitting there with your child, perhaps it really is just that timer that's just going to go off and beep. And, everybody hears it, like when there's something in the oven and nobody gets up to go take it out, right? That's going to be that same sort of thing. But these are just going to have to be solutions that each family has to work through. And they are going to happen. I hear what you're saying. There isn't a perfect solution. There isn't a perfect fix, unfortunately. There's just this consistency of still being there, of still supporting, still letting them know that you've got them, that you also understand how thrilling this is and how much fun it is. But I would always suggest that in those down times, those other moments when it's not, the device, it's not the time, that you have those real conversations about what social media represents in your life, what gaming represents as a family, and perhaps your teens might call you out on some things as well. And that is also useful to hear because we're all open to trying to improve our digital lifestyles. So I think that again, it's just this idea of us having those conversations and not being afraid to get it wrong. And I think that when we talk about this whole idea of gaming and, and the nagging, of course we're going to make some mistakes. We are in uncharted territory with digital parenting. We have no idea what we've have been doing, can do, what this is going to look like, what the longitudinal research is going to show us. But what I can say, what I've seen in the past 10 years, the one thing that has remained true is by having conversations, you are able to head off a lot of things before they get worse, before they turn criminal, when they're already bad enough. So there just has to be ways where we can get in there to support.
Okay, I want to say one of your suggestions. I love when there's something I've never heard before.
Oh.
So the idea of a timer means that my voice is not out. And I have found in my family, the more I can take it and put it onto something else, like put a chore chart on a piece of paper and hang it up, the better it works. And like the timer to me is like, it's not your voice. It's less irritating to everybody.
Yeah, for sure. It's not your voice and they don't have to hear it. And what's interesting? You just made me think of one other thing, which is kind of the flip side of this, right? So here's the way of getting them off. And something that I heard of that I had never heard of in 10 years was this idea of preparing an envelope for your teen. So bear with me. So you, at a moment that you're calm, you write down on a piece of paper, I've got you. I love you. I support you. Whatever you tell me, I'm going to stay calm and help you deal with this issue. You put it in the envelope, you give it to them. Your teen has that. It's their get out of jail card, if you will. They have it just sitting there in their room and they know that if there is that occasion when really, really something has happened online and they need you without your voice, without the nagging, without you going ballistic, that they can just give you this and that you're going to take a moment, be calm, and help them resolve the issue. Because more times than not, when we're seeing problems with cyberbullying and sexting, and even just being online too much and falling into negative habits of just endless scrolling and feeling sick about it, it's because they felt like they could not talk to their parents. They couldn't tell them. They were afraid they were going to take their devices away, shut them down. Yeah, you're nodding your head. You got me. Mm-hmm. So this is one way to just keep that line of communication open.
Get out of jail free.
Get out of jail free card.
Okay, we have a comment here from Mark Newton. I'm going to share. How would this conversation be different if schools and parents taught media literacy and empowered our children with the knowledge and skills to navigate all media, news, entertainment, social, advertising, legally, ethically, and responsibly?
Woo. The conversation would not be different. It would just be better. Meaning that you're going to open up this conversation and then your kids are going to come back and say, yeah, but in school we learned that, media literacy is critical thinking, is going to look and see who wrote what, who the author was, why did they have that in mind? And that's just a nice conversation to get things going about, our beliefs. I've done work for other cultures and, other religions, and, their beliefs and different and cultural values are the same and yet different. And so these things also have to come up and be embedded into our digital lives.
Okay, give us your one big takeaway for parents who are listening.
What I always say, which is don't panic, parent. Really, really. I know, actually, my other thing that I always say is take the tech out. Seriously, take the tech out. If whatever issue you have, whether it's social media or gaming, or you feel like your teen is doing so much, is into watching sexy videos, take the tech out and then think, how would you handle this situation? If it's cyberbullying, think of bullying in the schoolyard. If it's online pornography, think of them finding the Playboy or Playgirl magazine under a bed. Take the tech out and then just breathe. I really think that that you'd find that you have resources and knowledge and creative solutions on your own.
Dr. Elizabeth Milovidov,
Yes.
Once again, this was so informative, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Anytime, Sue. As I told you before, anytime. I love your community, and I'm always telling my people to go to you and see you and hang out. So I'm happy to, as we say in France, to send the elevator back down.
That's lovely. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.